When we speak of ihsan then in Islam, technically, to do something in a good, beautiful manner, we really are speaking of what came to be known as Muslim mysticism. Because Muslim mysticism or Sufism is an attempt to go over and above legal requirements. The law says, do this. And Sufism says, take another extra mile, go one extra mile, do this also, do this also. So not only the cake, but the icing as well. That is how Sufism is understood in the Islamic tradition. So before I get to Sufism, I just want to say a word about the word mysticism. It comes from the Greek muein, which means to keep closed, used of eyes or lips, and mustos, keeping silence, mystery. The word mystery is from that too. When you keep your eyes closed, it has a number of meanings. You keep your eyes closed to the phenomenal world, the world as it appears to your eyes. But that does not mean you shut your eyes to the world. You shut your eyes to the world, but open your eyes to another world. So closing one's eyes to this world means replacing sight with insight. And once you gain this insight or wisdom, then you keep your lips sealed. Why? Because most people are incapable of understanding those insights unless they've had direct experience of them. So first you keep your eyes closed and your eyes are opened onto another realm of truth and reality, and then you keep your lips shut because people would not understand the reality of those insights, truths that you want to present to them. And therefore, you keep silent. But this is not the silence of one who is ignorant, but the silence of one who is knowledgeable, but whose knowledge, unfortunately, most people are not in a position to share and benefit from. He will communicate only with other such people. From this, of course, comes our word, mystic. Mysticism would appear to be a universal phenomenon. All major religions have mystical traditions. There's Jewish mysticism, there's Hindu mysticism, Buddhist, Christian, and Islamic. So mysticism is found in all traditions, but this adjective, Hindu, Buddhist, Islamic, is no less important than the word mysticism itself. The implication being that while the phenomenon is found in all traditions, it's found in each tradition in a distinctive way. It's not something generic that has no face, no address to it. It is very, very specific also. In fact, it's possible to speak of mysticism in a general way, but really you cannot go into a whole lot of detail without pinning it down and tying it down to a specific tradition. And that is what we are after today, universality and specificity. So Muslim mysticism then is known as Sufism, and that is what we will be looking at. The first thing to note is that Sufism is an indigenous development in Islam. For a long time in Western scholarship, it was believed that a religion like Islam, which puts so much emphasis on the law, could not give rise to something as fine and delicate as mysticism. And earlier writers, Western writers on Sufism, expressed that viewpoint, and they have the same view of Judaism also, and they call it a barren soil from which it's very hard to imagine that this phenomenon grew, and therefore if it exists, it must have been a transplant, that is to say, an importation from outside sources. But modern research has shown that Sufism grew from the soil of Islam. There may have been outside influences, but basically it's a tree that grew from the soil of Islam, so it has an indigenous development to it. Let's look for a moment at the etymology of Sufism. Where does the word Sufism comes from? Well, there are a large number of etymologies, not one etymology, but many, and these are only a few. One of them is probably the most popular, that Suf means wool. Now, this is not cashmere or Scottish wool. This is coarse wool. You made garments from that coarse wool. Christian hermits used to use this, and it's actually very uncomfortable wearing this. And it symbolized withdrawal from the pleasures and comforts of the world, and you set yourself off as one who was focused on another world. So this is one suggested etymology. Another one is Safa, which means purity, that is purity of the heart. Since Sufis, Muslim mystics, strive after acquiring a pure heart, therefore the word Safa has been suggested as an etymology. A third one is Saf, which means row. When you go to the mosque, you see the Imam leading the prayer, and then there's first Saf, second Saf, third Saf, depending on how many people are there to perform the prayer. Sufis, it is said, were so eager to go to the mosque. The moment they heard the prayer call, they rushed to the mosque, the house of God, and they tried to find a place in the first Saf, first row. And from this they got named Sufis. Another etymology is Sophia, Greek word meaning wisdom, from philosophy, for example. That is, Sufism aims at a special kind of philosophy, a wisdom, not an ordinary kind of wisdom, but a special kind. And there are other etymologies. If you ask a Sufi, what do you say? Which is the right etymology? The Sufi would probably say, all of these and none of these. That is, each of these etymologies captures an aspect of what Sufism is, but does not describe it exhaustively. And so you can suggest some other etymologies or other explanations which have nothing to do with the word Sufism. It could be another word altogether, so linguistically untenable. But a Sufi might say this is the right etymology because it captures the essence of Sufism, although language-wise it does not have any relationship with the word Sufism. Okay? Sufi is Arabic. Yeah, Sufi is Arabic. We have to distinguish now between three words, and these are Sharia, Tareeqa, Haqiqah. Please don't be intimidated. The translations are up there. Sharia means law, Tareeqa is path, Haqiqah is truth. See, whenever words rhyme, they appear to make a truth statement. When you say, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Or Hannah Montana. Anything, you see, there's some, the moment you say this, rhyme appears to suggest, oh, this must be true because it rhymes. Let me explain this by drawing a circle. It's not the most perfect circle you will ever see in your life, but it should suffice for our purposes. Sufis would say that this circumference, periphery, represents Sharia, that is the law. If you are outside the fold of Islam, then you step in to the fold, you stand here, now you are no longer a non-Muslim. You're a Muslim, a believer, and God promises you salvation if you follow the instructions in the scripture, in hadith, etc. So when you perform the legal obligations that you are supposed to perform, then you are a Muslim in good standing, but you are at the periphery. You are not the ideal Muslim. Being here suffices for purposes of salvation, but you could become a better Muslim. For that, they say, at the center of it is Haqiqah, or truth, and that is where you should strive to go. That is the point which you reach, you'll become an ideal Muslim, a Sufi Muslim, that is to say. So this periphery represents the law, the first one, and the center represents Haqiqah, Sufism, the truth. And of course, if you want to reach from the periphery to the center, you have to take a path, and this path is Tareeqa. Okay? So, as a Muslim, you start here. You can choose to stay on the periphery, and that is fine. Muslim in good standing. But it's recommended that you make some progress toward the center, Haqiqah. And if you want to do that, then you follow a certain path, and that path is Tareeqa.